Hey guys, I want to take a quick minute here to discuss a topic often termed living below your means as a way to increase your financial picture or better your financial picture, I guess you would say. It's a topic that I love to talk about because I think it's one of the easiest to implement and most important topics that most people could implement right now. It has done so many great things for me. It's something I've implemented early on, and I don't implement it as much anymore. However, I think it's a front-ended thing where you should implement it and then it can kind of taper off as you see some success. Although I could always do better at this as well. I'll run through some stuff that I did to live below my means and maybe you can relate. I hopefully can kind of stretch you a little bit to make you think, hey, maybe I don't need this or that. That's my whole goal here. When going through this, I definitely want you to remember my situation. If you subscribe to my channel, you know that I'm a pharmacist by trade. So all this stuff I'm going to talk about, or most of it, I did while I was a pharmacist. So I want you to kind of think about that. It doesn't take more than a Google search to figure out about what I make. And if you do that, you'll find that's in the low six figures. So it's a very nice W-2 income and can afford a lot of things in society. But so keep that in mind as I go through what I did to eliminate some things and live below my means. The biggest payment I think most people in America have is their mortgage payment or their rent payment. I don't know if that's true for you, but just statistically speaking, that is true of most Americans. If you can find a way to eliminate that payment, imagine what that does for you. Imagine how much extra cash is laying around to maybe just go on more trips or feed a hobby or feed investments, as I did with that. The idea of house hacking, I know I brought it up before, but that is what I did for a decade, or the better part of it, probably about 8 years. From the time I was 22 to the time I was 30, 1 year in there I paid rent to a property manager, a landlord, and immediately stopped that and went back to the idea of house hacking. You know, throughout college, grad school, I lived in a house I owned, rented out the rooms, house hacked, paid well below market rents to the company that I actually owned, but saved me money personally, right? And that actually continued after I graduated for another year in the same house I lived in during grad school, paying I think like $400 a month while making a six-figure income. I lived in a basement, not glamorous whatsoever, not the, oh look at me, I'm a doctor now, entrance to the world that everybody would assume would happen, or the signs of success, if you will. From there, I went and lived with a buddy in Madison in a very nice townhome. It's the 1 year I said I paid rent, all the while doing real estate and whatnot. Immediately knew that wasn't for me. Moved in with a partner of mine at the time and paid well below average market rent at a house he was house hacking. I think we paid like $250 is what I paid him every month. All the while during that time, I think the next phase was me moving from remodel to remodel of the houses I was remodeling, living on the unfinished portions of them. You know, if the house was demoed, might as well live there. We're doing work on it. I'd sleep on floors, cots, couches. Sometimes the plumbing wasn't on. Sometimes there wasn't any heat. And by no means did, as soon as these houses were done, tenants would move in. So I moved out. I never got to live in like one of my finished remodels. I was always jumping to the next one, avoiding the idea at all costs of paying rent. And I want you to think about that. And also think that I could have done it a different way with my income, correct? And you definitely might call that fanatical, and I think it is, but I can't promise you this, but I think this is super important. If you want to be financially independent at an early age, you need to be fanatical. Absolutely. And I've put off that part of my life, the biggest expense in my life, I put off. I fought it for 8 years. I now got this thing, this house. I own this house. We do not house hack any of the rooms or anything like that. I pay a mortgage now. We can talk more about that. From a financial standpoint, this is not smart. I will tell you that straight up. There's other advantages to it. My girlfriend Kate and I are very happy with our house. We're very excited about home ownership from a personal standpoint. However, I will tell you this is not a smart financial decision if you are starting off. That being said, it is so important to do it at an early age, guys. It takes the time value of money, if you've ever learned about that, it takes a while for the snowball to start rolling down the hill and gather weight. But once it does, it really starts to gain momentum and mass. And if you can put off some of these things early in life and put that extra money towards investments and businesses you're starting or anything like that, it will just compound and snowball. So when you're 40, 50, 60, 70, it is many times what it was. And it's so important. And there's no better time to start now if you're watching this video, because you are the youngest you're ever going to be. And I know that what I did, it was part of my situation. I was young, I was single at the time, no kids. That's not realistic for everybody watching this, right? A single mom with 2 kids is that's not a good idea to be moving from remodel to remodel with no heat and plumbing, etc., etc. It's also not good for your social life if you're not showering on a daily basis. I will say that I did usually manage to find a shower most days, so I would like to put that in there. However, I put that off too. I put off a lot of things with my friends, knowing that I was building towards a better financial future. If you ask my friends, from 2014 to about 2017, I was pretty much a ghost. Social events, I did not go out and hang out every night drinking beers at the bars with my buddies. I was always working towards a goal, remodeling, painting, doing spreadsheets on my computer, figuring out my next move. Again, fanatical. I missed out on some very, very good years hanging out with my friends, right? Now they're all married and starting to have kids and families. It's not so easy to get together anymore. I missed out on that time. Do I regret that? In no way. I'm very happy I did what I did. And I would like you to think about that, because that's, again, very fanatical. From a car standpoint, a vehicle, that's usually another pretty high payment on most people's budgets. You also got student loans that are getting up there for a lot of people my age, and especially younger. But from a car, I really can't speak too much about student loans. I had them. There's not a really good way around them. I can talk to you about how I tackled them here in a minute, though. Car standpoint, I drove a 1999 Buick Century from 2008 to 2013. I was in school during that entire time, so it's not like I had the cash to throw around and have my W-2 income. Totaled that car in 2013. I hit a deer. That was my last year in grad school. I bought a Mazda 6 for $13,000 used. It was a 2010. I still have it to this day. I have it paid off. I love that car. It's not going to turn your head. If anything, you're like, it's not the best of car. However, I love every month, instead of putting $200, $300, maybe $400 towards a car payment, I put that into my savings and into more investments every month. You know, everybody asks me, when you get a new car, when you get a new car, you can afford it, you can afford it. Why? Why do I want a new car? That is just a financial burden on me. I've recently moved out to Colorado, as you know. There is a need for all-wheel drive and maybe four-wheel drive, so safety becomes a concern, so maybe I will upgrade soon. However, I came from Wisconsin where there's rough roads as well, and that car served me just fine there on winter roads. So I think that if you can drive an old beater, it would serve you very, very well, instead of having that nice new whip that you want to show off on social media to everybody. What else can I say about cars? Worst investment ever. If you buy a new car, you drive it off the lot, it lost $5,000. I saw a graph one time of the happiness of a car, or not the happiness, the functionality of a car. This is just like a graph of functionality versus the type of car. The Mazda 6 I own, the 2010 Mazda 6, compared to a Ferrari, let's say like a convertible Ferrari, my car does 99% of everything that Ferrari does. It can't go as fast. However, it can go as fast as any legal speed limit I'm ever going to see. to get to point A and B. It gets me from point A and B. It probably has more seats than the Ferrari, probably just a two-seater than the Ferrari. I could seat 5 pretty comfortably. I have a trunk, I can carry things. So the argument could be made, my car is more functional and should make me more happy than the Ferrari. However, in our society, that Ferrari is viewed as the success. And I think that is so wrong. So I'd like you to think about what your car does versus your dream car. I bet it's above 95% it would do what your dream car would do. So just hang on to that car. If it's safe, if it's still running, if you're saving money every month, that's an awesome thing, guys. Awesome. Student loans are the other big one. You got to deal with them. I started paying them off early, right when I got out of school. I had a big chunk of them. I had like about $94,000, I think. So I started paying them off really quick. Then I stopped, realizing I could make more money through investments. I've actually very recently paid them all off in a large lump sum payment. I went down, I refinanced, and lowered the payment that way. I would very much encourage you guys to look at refinancing options. As interest rates are starting to go up here in 2019, and they went up mostly in 18, those refinancing options compared to the federal options maybe you have locked in aren't quite as good now. But watch the interest rates and see if you can lower your monthly payment while still paying those off on time. That would be my advice there. But yeah, I think that's kind of covers the topic of living below your means and how important that can be if you think about just eliminating some of those payments in your life. I wanted to start sharing some good books to read on the topics that I'm starting to talk about. So some of the books that really helped me with this topic, just an awesome story, and I know you guys have all seen the story based off the Will Smith movie, is The Pursuit of Happiness, written by Chris Gardner, the man who lived that. Chris didn't necessarily want to be living below his means. However, the story is so powerful and will just make you realize you can live with much, much less than you do now. I think it's a very, very powerful story. If you haven't read the book or at least saw the movie, please go out and rent that. I think that's very powerful. Another great book that I really like, there's some great hacks in it for saving money, from going to a bagel shop at the end of the day and getting all their used old bagels because they make them fresh every morning. They have some leftovers. You can go there and get them, oftentimes free, half price, etc., etc. To going up to a hotel and asking for a phone charger because, believe me, they have scores of them because you leave them. Think about how many times you've left them. I learned this all from a book. It's called $1 Million by 30. It's written by Alan Corey. It's an interesting story. It's kind of a nice read, and he gives you little life hacks that he's done along the way. I found that very interesting. Another one that I've read is Millionaire by 30 by Douglas R. Andrew. Pretty good book there too, and it kind of talks about living below your means to get to the goal of obviously $1 million by 30. One that I've read recently, it's more to deal with minimalism and getting by with less, and that's actually taking pretty good hold in our society, which I try to subscribe to in most areas, and I think I do in most areas of my life. In some areas I don't think I'm a minimalist, but it's called Vagabonding by Ralph Potts. And the idea of vagabonding is traveling and kind of being just a nomad, right? But it talks about not having material things so you can travel and can be more mobile and fluid. And it's pretty powerful stuff, and it's pretty cool how Ralph discusses what he did to be able to travel the world and just be very mobile. That's all I got for you guys today. Ask me any questions, guys. I'm happy to discuss any of. My pride's at the door. If you guys want to hear about the nights of me, without heat, not showering and stuff like that, happy to expand on how I did it. Hopefully it motivates you to do some of the same, and then use that money that you're saving to invest, whether that's in real estate or the stock market or whatever you like to do. Thanks. Cheers, guys.